Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of the CA Short All-in Employee Engagement Podcast. I am Kevin Gergel, and today we actually have a pinch hitter in for Scott Russell, and that's our very own Chase Corey. Chase, how are you?
I'm very well, Kevin. How are you?
Doing very well, thank you. Very excited about our guest today. We'll get to her in a moment. We were chatting a little bit briefly before the start here about our shared love of pets.
Absolutely.
And so, as you know, I've got a couple of pugs. You've got a bulldog. Normally, they're right by my feet when we're recording these. And I think a lot of people connect with their pets. And
absolutely.
It made me think of employee recognition, of course, what we do. And one of the favorite things that I've seen with our clients is utilizing our e-card functionality within our platform and incorporating pets.
Absolutely.
So we've had a couple clients where they submitted photos of their dogs, cats, pets, whatever, and then we turned them into e-cards to send out via recognition. So I thought that was pretty cool.
I think it's one of my favorites. And, my wife, she actually works from home. And like you said, we have a bulldog. And anyone that has one knows one of the most, loving features about this dog is the way they snore. And if my wife is like on a call or something, she either has to apologize or get out of wherever Phoebe is, because, she snores worse than I do. So if ever we get to the point, yeah, exactly. So if we ever get to the point to where we can have those e-cards animated or with sound, I've got the perfect one. Already working out the idea in my head for one.
I love it.
Already working it out.
Great. I look forward to that. With COVID and the shift to remote work and Teams calls, Zoom calls, I do think that's one of the best things that's come of it is that everyone's pets. Talk about engagement and capturing the whole employee as a person. For many, it's their love of their pets, so that's really cool. Well, with that being said, our guest today is also a pet lover, and she's also someone that, Chase, you get to work closely with as one of your clients. So
I do.
I'll let you tee her up in the introduction here.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Kevin. Like you said, I definitely get to work with Teresa Eigle at DSW, and I'm so thankful she was able to fit us in today and join us on the call. And I'm looking very much forward to what she asked for us.
Fantastic. With no further ado, Teresa, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
How are you doing today?
Before you go on, just I know I'm not as great at that part as Scott usually is, but as we go on, I promise, Teresa, it'll get a little bit better. A little bit better.
I don't know if we're gonna have Scott back, Chase. I disagree.
Too kind.
I think his reign is over. Absolutely.
Uh-oh.
Teresa, welcome. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Oh, doing great. So happy to talk to you. Designer Brands, DSW. It's funny, whenever I think of your company, I think of the shoes that we wear for our conferences. So we have some shoes that we acquired from DSW with our logo on it. And every time we're working a booth at a conference, we get compliments on it. So.
Luckily, I've seen those. Chase has sent me some photos. They look great.
Absolutely.
I love them.
Me too. They're a big hit. Well, we'd like to start by learning a little bit more about you, Teresa, and your career and what brought you to Designer Brands and a little bit about your role and your history.
Yeah. So you kind of mentioned Designer Brands. I like to kind of start with this because a lot of people, including myself, before I started working here, didn't quite understand kind of what's under the full scope of Designer Brands. So people are most familiar with our DSW stores typically. So we have all the DSW stores in the US. We also have DSW and shoe company stores in Canada. So they also have our e-cards and other things that we do with you guys. And then we also have Vince Camuto. So Vince Camuto is the brand Vince Camuto, but also a handful of other footwear brands. So Kelly and Katie, Lucky Brand, Jessica Simpson, J-Lo, those are all underneath. There's a bunch more too, but those are all underneath Vince Camuto as well. And then when we actually acquired Vince Camuto, I think in 2018, it was we also have offices now in China and Brazil. So we've kind of really become, especially in these last couple of years, a global company. So about myself, my scope is all of Designer Brands, and I lead our philanthropy and associate engagement for Designer Brands globally. I have a little bit of an unconventional career path to get to where I am today. So my background is actually primarily in project management. So I actually started a strategic project management team at my old company that I was there for about 7 years, and then just joined Designer Brands just about a year ago. And I think you asked too, kind of what drew me to Designer Brands, or, what attracted me to it. And I think a lot of it is that I could see from the get-go, and I've continued to see this the last year since I've been there, that we talk about our associates really being kind of the heartbeat of our organization, and particularly our culture. And it's not just something we're saying, we're actually walking the walk through and through. And I see that from our leadership all the way down to every single person in our store. And I think a big part of that is our recognition program with CA Short.
That's great to hear. Great to hear. Oftentimes employers they'll talk the talk. They'll talk a great game and say we're all about culture, family. We've got a foosball table, maybe. That doesn't equal culture. You have to have buy-in from the very top, your leadership all the way down through your frontline managers. So very happy to hear that Designer Brands is living that out every day. And you and your role play a huge part of that. I also learned something new. I didn't realize Lucky was part of your portfolio. Wearing Lucky.
Yeah, that is. Yep.
Nice. Lucky me. All right.
And another thing that, just in hearing that, back before, everything with the pandemic, and, back when we were still able to do those on-site meetings, you could definitely tell that when you walk the halls there. Everything from the cafeteria, like that, the different walls where you all would hang like the service awards that people had gotten in the past. I mean, they would even order extra so they could give you yours, but so you could also be celebrated there at the facility as well. And I always thought that was a really cool nod to the employees, and just everything there. I mean, I can't think of a lot of places that are as, out front, and, as soon as you walk in there, they love their employees. They put their people first. And you also get that in the interaction. So the way that the individuals like Angela Holt and Kate, getting to know them a lot better, and just how great they treated us. And, they're such great stewards and ambassadors for the organization. And it shows that you all take care of your people, because they're turning out such great people like those two and yourself, Teresa. So you guys are doing something right, and we're happy to be a part of it.
I think something that's interesting that you're saying too, Chase, is that about in the last year, sometime, I forget exactly when it was, we kind of made this intentional transition to allow we've really transitioned to kind of this more formal hybrid corporate culture, where we heard from our associates early on in COVID that they really loved to have the opportunity to work from wherever they wanted to, and really whenever they wanted to. And something that I was really impressed by, and this kind of started to happen before I joined the company, but really was solidified since I joined, was that our leadership also kind of reacted to that pretty quickly, and we've kind of fully transitioned to that option for everybody. So we have our offices still. Some people come in every day. Some people come in when they want to. Some people never come in. A lot of our associates have moved away from our offices into other cities, other states. And I feel like that too has really kind of, our program with you guys has really been a seamless transition to that, because, it's still allowing our associates, no matter where they're located, to send e-cards, to recognize each other from no matter where they are. And as I really look at how do we continue to lean into that and really build this hybrid culture and let our associates know that we're supporting them and there's no pressure to be coming into our offices.
Exactly.
Part of that is that I forget where I read this, but I was reading a large study recently about the fact that it was either number 1 or number 2, but the way that it said the way the associates feel a culture, like kind of this felt sense of culture, number one or number two was through recognition. And so I think it's such a big way and component of us being able to make that transition in a seamless way and still have this really strong sense of culture in the company.
It's huge. That's huge. That's exactly, I think Kevin will agree. That's one of the things that we definitely, I think over the last few years have really tried to drive home and make, center focus on what we do with others. So that's huge.
That's exactly right. I mean, it's very easy to get wrong when you go from an environment where you're together in the four walls. Now you may feel isolated. So if you're not intentional about the tools and your communication strategy and your recognition strategy, it's very easy for your employees to become disengaged. And that's the exact opposite of what you're doing. I love this conversation. It's such an interesting conversation because there's opinions across the board and seems to be research across the board too, in terms of staying at home, coming into the office. Personally, I agree with exactly what Designer Brands is doing, the flexibility, giving your associates the option to work in the way that is best suited for them. I think that's wise, and I think it's a reason why you're being so successful.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was thinking, so I love hearing people's career path stories because life is so funny. 10 years ago, if you look back to where you are now, you're probably like, how the heck did I get here? I know that's how I feel about my career. I started as a professional baseball player in the minor leagues, and then I was selling for AT&T. And I started to win some sales incentive programs and recognition programs. And lo and behold, now I'm supporting those types of programs for other brands. This is not something I'd ever think of. You coming in as a project manager with that background, now stepping into associate recognition, among other things. Just curious how that's gone for you and what insights have you learned so far?
Yeah, so I was thinking about this recently, actually, because it's kind of come full circle for me in the last, I don't know, couple of years, I would say, because I really didn't make this connection for some reason for a while, but going back like to ancient times when I was in college, my degree was actually it was called something like business leadership or something, but really it was the reason that I wanted to study it at the time was because it was kind of this mix between psychology and business. Like it was a degree from the business school, but it was really about psychology. And really, I didn't know what I was going to do with it. Now here I am. But it was really, I knew that I was interested and still am in like what motivates people to show up for work, what allows people to feel a sense of belonging, connection to their coworkers and to their company. And then what kind of recognition do people really want what do they want to, how do they want to receive recognition, and what is it that's going to make them feel seen? And so I feel like that's kind of come full circle because I went through so this is actually my first time in retail as well. So that's new for me. Definitely had some learnings there at the beginning to really understand all the ins and outs of that. I was like, what does merchandising do? But so I was in logistics and healthcare actually prior to this. And I feel like I knew that project management was a really good skill set. I think naturally my brain is very, it works that way. Like I'm just kind of very regimented about the way that I think. So I had that background. I knew that I could carry that skill set to whatever I went into. And I actually was I was kind of leading this project management team, getting it started. On top of that, I really realized that I was holding on to also, I had started it as a project and kind of held on to it for 7-ish years that I was at my last organization of doing philanthropy and associate wellness and associate engagement. And so I kind of got to this point, I think like many actually during COVID, that I was like, I really wanted to be able to lean into that more because I knew that was something that I really loved. And so here I am. I don't think I'll ever turn back at this point, but it's interesting because it's been a while since I was in college, and here I am kind of coming back to what I knew I always loved. And I don't know that I have anything specifically to say about what I've learned in that, because I feel like it's really about trying things and figuring out what really meshes with you and what you want to do. And who knows what I'll be doing in 30 years, but right now, this is definitely where I want to be. And enjoying this part of it.
That's fantastic. That's a great story. Very, very cool.
It is. It is. So if and I guess because you were in like the project management space before, so I'm sure there, like you said, there's a lot of what you did there that you can bring over to just about any profession, and get a lot out of it, or be able to bring a lot to the table. What would you say are some of the most prevalent things that you see now, being in the recognition and engagement space? What are some of the biggest things that translate that you're able to use and kind of employ from them?
I think a lot of it is kind of executing the programs in the way that I think about the work in general, because there's kind of these project management concepts that are so drilled into my mind of like just phases of a project and how you kick things off and retroactively looking at things once you've actually done them. So I think some of it, because I think I spent the better part of my first year here. I guess it's been probably closer to a year and a half at this point, but since I started there at Designer Brands, but I think I spent the better part of that first year just really learning and understanding, like, what are these programs that we have around recognition and engagement? Like, what are we doing for our associates? And I would say that's kind of like the retroactive part of a project, of all the project phases. I was kind of the one I was in. And then I started to look ahead. And I think even going forward, I'm really now at the position where I'm looking ahead to our future and saying, knowing that we're going to continue leaning into this kind of hybrid work culture, what is the whole project? And then what are going to be all the components of that? So I think that there are, and I think even more minute into that, or more tactical into that, there are definitely like templates and stuff that I've used in my past that I can use now, of the way that we're tracking things and the way that we're executing things to make it successful. Because there are so many different components to this. And I do think, our e-cards and our standout awards and all of the things that we do with you guys is so crucial to that. But what are maybe some of the other things in addition to that are kind of going to make up this whole engagement and recognition program that we have going into the future as we continue to embrace that?
Sure. And it's so interesting, I think, to see, bringing someone that has that background that you do, and you coming, into this and being a part of the team during such a big transition to that hybrid model, and, being able to kind of take the program that you've done before and that, everyone's familiar with, and kind of let it grow and kind of go to that next phase. I think it's exciting, and I think they probably got the perfect person given the time that they were in.
I agree.
Absolutely.
And I think you hit the nail on the head, Teresa, when you mentioned or alluded to the fact that I like to look at it as pieces of a pie. You look at employee engagement, the recognition system, and that piece, that's just one piece of the overall pie of what goes into engagement. So many factors, of course, whether it is, the work environment itself, hybrid or in person, it's the front, your direct manager, of course. Yep. So a lot of different elements that go into it, for sure.
I think part of it too is also recognizing per individual, like because something that we've done is kind of give our leaders a toolkit of like, here are the different ways that you can recognize your associates, because there's also the acknowledgement of like, not everybody wants to be acknowledged publicly. Like maybe something more private is better for them. Like maybe an e-card is a lot more meaningful for them than being recognized in a 100-person meeting, or maybe vice versa. So I think there's also kind of this like balance that we're playing of like catering to each individual's needs too, knowing that the way that people are recognized can be different, and doing it different ways from a company level, but also giving our leaders the tools to be able to do that.
No, you're so true. Chase is our resident introvert. More of an extrovert. I like my name in lights. Chase, more probably would prefer just a one-on-one conversation. So you're exactly right. 5 generations in the workforce, different stages of life, diverse, introverts, extroverts. All of these factors come into play when you have to think about recognition. So you equipping your leaders with those that knowledge and those tools that they can have is so smart. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And you mentioned, retail. It got me thinking. When I think of retail and I think of our retail clients, the number one thing that usually comes up is turnover. It is going to be a challenge, of course. So I'm just curious, what initiatives have you had around recognition to directly help or support that area?
So that is definitely top of mind for us as well. Especially, I mean, and this is probably true across the board for retail, but obviously the stores associate population is really driving that. That's where we're seeing the vast majority of our turnover. And I think really is, like I kind of alluded to, that I'm looking ahead on what is our future strategy and what does our future program look around engagement and recognition. A big part of that is through the lens of retention, because we've heard kind of this term of the Great Resignation, and we've coined our own term of the Great Retention instead. And how can we think of that in that way instead? And I think it's not necessarily one thing or one particular thing. It's more just that I am looking at all that we're doing to make sure that we are, to the example that you just gave, like catering to every individual's different needs or having different options to make sure that we can retain our talent. Because realistically, at the end of the day, we are training our leaders to hire great people, and we want to keep them as part of our Designer Brands family. And so when we can, equip our leaders to do those things, and then from my standpoint and kind of leading the program as a whole, providing the potentially broader opportunities or support for that recognition, I think that's kind of the way that we'll continue to lean as we think about it, but certainly top of mind as we think about where we're going to go in the future.
I love the great retention. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, I can't claim that. Somebody else thought of that on there. Are there?
You'll probably hear I say it again after this.
No, we'll give you credit for it. Yeah.
Really good one.
That is a great lens to look at this opportunity that you have in the coming years, and certainly give you credit. We recommend as a best practice, of course, is continuous improvement within your program. So using data and analytics, understanding what's working, what's not working, how can you evolve the program over time to drive that success is such a smart approach, and will definitely yield dividends. That's for sure.
I think some of it too, actually, Kevin, is that we also have had so many new leaders that have joined since just in the last couple of years. Like the business has changed in a lot of ways, especially our culture is, I don't even want to say change, but just had to react to just the changing broader environment. And I think part of that is the way that we're really kind of looking at this anew and being able to also make sure that we're kind of reiterating to our new leaders, here are the different tools that you have. So like I'm even doing kind of this, well, soon I'm going to be starting it like a whole new campaign over all of the recognition tools that we have with you guys to say like, hey, senior leader, you actually have extra points that you can assign or that you can allocate to somebody else to say thank you for going above and beyond. Or we have these standout awards. Any associate can nominate another associate, and we now have recognition directly from our CEO for the winners of those. And it is this huge award. And so it's also kind of a reminder campaign for all of our new leaders that have come in, or really all of our new associates that have come in the last couple of years too, to your point with retention, to make sure that they know that that's available to them.
That's huge. And, and I think too, in what made me think about it when you said that about kind of catering the message and, who the audience, kind of tailoring it to who you're giving it to me, that comes off as a lot more genuine. It's more thoughtful. Of course, anytime, you have a lot of these programs that are at your disposal and you're not seeing it every single day, you don't always remember all of that stuff. So it's always great to give that reminder. I think kind of keeping in mind, just like what you said, thinking about being mindful of how you're recognizing folks and doing so in a way that's, truly celebrating them and not embarrassing them, or because like you said, everyone doesn't like to be recognized the same way. And me being that the raging extrovert that I am, I like being in front of everybody in the stadium, all eyes and spotlights on me. But people like Kevin may not. So it just goes like that.
Exactly.
Exact opposite. Anyway, exact opposite.
No, it sounds like next time I'm up there, Chase, at the town hall, we're gonna have you go. Let you cook.
Please do.
Teresa, this has been a great conversation. This is the All In Employee Engagement Podcast, and we always like to end our time with our guests by asking one question, and that is, what does an all-in employee mean to you? How would you define an all-in employee?
That's a good question. I like that. I would say an all-in employee to me is kind of multi-pronged. So it's someone that has the support in place at work, I would say at home too, actually, to be able to show up to work fully. And when I say that, I don't mean like 100% every single day, because that's impossible for any human, but just be able to show up as their full self, whatever's going on. I would say they also are able to and interested in joining some of our other activities or opportunities at work. So I'm thinking like we have business resource groups. Sometimes they're called employee resource groups. Focus group opportunities, volunteer opportunities, completing optional surveys. Like, what are some of those other things that they're doing on top of their job? Another piece of that to me would be having some camaraderie or just like real relationships at work. And that's, again, something else that I'm really looking into. How do we continue to cultivate those in a virtual environment, but really just having somebody to confide in that you're working with. And then I would say another component of that is having the confidence and comfortability to have hard conversations and give hard feedback when it's needed. And then the last component that I'll just put a little cherry on top with is giving appreciation to their coworkers. So for example, through our e-cards. So it is a lot to juggle, in my opinion. I'm kind of naming a lot of different things, but I can already think of, as we're talking, those associates that definitely fit the bill. Like, it does exist, but there are a lot of different components to that to be all in.
It was a great answer. I was writing a few of those down, and you're right. It's funny because certain people pop into your mind as you describe what that looks like, because we know exactly what that looks like. And that was well said. Thank you.
Very well said.
Unfortunately, our time has to be cut short here, as it is time to go. Teresa, thank you so much for joining us. Hopefully you'll come back down the road. Would love to check in with you as you continue to evolve your recognition reward program and hear about all the great things that you accomplished this year. And Chase, I think Scott is getting the boot. I think we're bringing
Scott, you're safe. Don't worry about it, guys. You're good. But it has been fun. And as always, Kevin, it's always great to get to speak with you. And Teresa, definitely enjoyed getting to learn a little bit more about you, and look forward to the update in the future.
Well, thank you guys so much for having me. It was fun.
All right. That's a wrap. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on the CA Short All In Employee Podcast. Kevin and I will join you next time, right here.